Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another masterclass tutorial by Miniature Mentor. Today we have Roman Vandenborg with us today. How you doing?
Hi.
We're going to be taking on today the demon, one of his miniatures that he's painted in the past, and it's sitting right there beside him. If you could just pull it up for us, we can take a quick look. Perfect. Do you think you could tell us a little bit about that miniature there?
This miniature has been sculpted by Jacques-Alexandre Gillot
Mm-hmm.
for a French company
Mm-hmm.
called JMD Miniature.
Okay.
So I have even painted this demon in the past,
Okay.
and for the box art,
Okay.
and I will paint this miniature for Miniature Mentor.
Perfect. Excellent. Could you explain some of the other miniatures that you have there?
Yeah. We'll begin by the old one.
Sure, of course.
This one was a miniature sculpted for a golden demon. So it was sculpted in milliput, and she won something in the 40 category.
Okay.
She won gold in France. So I was pretty proud of this one when I sculpted him. I think this miniature was sculpted. The head represents the head of a friend, and the inspiration was a little bit mixed with autobiographic. A guy who make a lot of party and drink beer. So it inspired me of different things like my life or life of friends.
Skin tones are unbelievable on that. Is that painted in acrylic or?
Yeah, I always paint in acrylic.
Okay, so
I'm really interested in painting in oil
Mhm.
in the future, but I have no time, and I still paint with acrylic color. During a long time I have been interested in sculpting little robots,
Okay.
because I discovered an artist called Ashley Wood. It's an illustrator, and I really inspired me of his art to create my own little robots.
Okay.
And this one was a view of a building that I have at my school,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a building, a Paris building, the typical Paris building, and the robot is running uh, on the window. This miniature was sculpted in Fimo
Mm-hmm.
and milliput for the armor plates.
Okay.
I tried to sculpt the head in a different way than the typical game workshop head, because I think it had more personality to the and more typical characteristic to the miniatures. Now I'm really influenced
Mm-hmm.
by a French artist called Moebius. I have sculpted this bust
Mm-hmm.
with a typical hat of his world, and I have
Converted, yeah.
converted a miniature sculpted by Raoul Garcia Latour
Okay.
from Latour Model. He inspired me of Moebius and Miyazaki, the man who drew the Japanese movie.
Okay. Anime movies.
And I like to mix these two worlds to create my own miniatures. And beside these two miniatures, you can see a little bust
Yeah.
of Ben Harper.
Okay.
And I've tried to sculpt something more wild
Okay.
with the lion.
With a lion. Excellent.
And this lion is released by a company of a friend of mine,
Mm-hmm.
called Kraken Edition,
Okay.
and this one is available.
On their site. Absolutely. Excellent. What kind of brushes do you use?
I personally use this paintbrush
Okay.
from it's not a Raphael. A lot of painters use Raphael paintbrush.
That's right.
No, they are very good. No, I use Winsor and Newton paintbrush.
Okay.
From the series 7.
Okay.
The special series miniatures 7.
Mm-hmm.
And the number 2.
Okay.
or the number 1. It's the same. It's the same, and I really like them. For me, it's a Rolls Royce of the paintbrush.
That is a paintbrushes. Now, do you use that for almost all of your
Yeah.
miniature work? That particular one
I paint all of the thing with this paintbrush.
with that
only one.
paintbrush. Okay.
The big thing, the little things.
Mhm.
It's the same for me.
Okay. Now, what about your paints? What kind of paints do you use? I know during the course of the tutorial we used lots of Games Workshop.
Yeah.
We used a couple Prince August or Vallejo colors. Which do you prefer? Which one?
Personally, I think that we must use all of the different paint from different companies because they have different characteristic.
Mm-hmm.
I use a lot of Game Workshop because it's one of the best paint line available in the shop, etc. But the Prince August have some interesting characteristic. The new foundation paint and the model color, the special color for airbrush have some characteristic. The painting from Privator Press,
Mm-hmm.
the P3.
The P3 colors.
The
Yeah.
P3 colors are a little bit glossy, so
You'd like to try them out too.
to create. You must play with the color and their characteristic to create textures and effect. So all of the paint are very good if you know how to use it.
Okay, and I noticed that when we were doing our tutorial, you like to mix colors a lot. You like to take like 4 or 5 colors and mix them to make a base coat. Is that the way you normally work?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that it's the best way to achieve realistic and interesting result because in the reality there is nothing only black, only white, only blue.
Mm-hmm.
You always must play with the different color, the red, the warm, the cold.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay, now what about your work area here? I see that you have 2 lamps there. Is that the way you normally work with these two lamps?
yeah.
Now we switched the bulb just for the taping of the tutorial, just to have consistent lighting. But one of them you keep a warm light. The black one there is a 3200 Kelvin. That's a warm light, like a tungsten light. And the other one you use a daylight bulb in it. Now, do you use a combination of both at the same time? So you got a warm light on one side and a cool light on the other side?
Yeah. I always use the both eyes at the same time.
At the same time?
Yeah.
At the exact same time?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and how close do you put them? Like, how close do you put these lights to you when you
It
work?
really depends of the level of detail
Uh-huh.
I want to paint.
Now, could you show us? Just if
Whole painting session, I think
you paint about that
I
close.
paint like that. And for the details, for the face, for example,
Okay.
I can
Move it in a little bit
move the light to be
to be closer to you, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, so you do use both the warm color and the cool color
Yeah.
together at the
Yeah.
same time
Yeah.
while you're painting.
Yeah.
Okay, and that produces, you think, a more realistic effect. So you get a really good idea what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
So what inspires you? Where do you get your ideas from? What do you prefer to paint?
No, I inspired me of a lot of things. For example, comics, movies, a lot of art book
Mm-hmm.
from different illustrator or painter, classic painter.
Mhm.
It's very important to.
How would you define your style? Like, what do you prefer a more realistic approach? Do you prefer something more cartoony? Something in between? What do you prefer to paint? Because I noticed that there's a similar style running through all of your miniatures. There's a certain color scheme. There's a certain way that you're painting. How would you define your style?
I really try to mix the both. A lot of realistic effect
Mm-hmm.
from rust, the use of special pigments, micro painting, etc. But at the same time, I try to have a more cartoon style
Okay.
that I took in the comics inspiration
Mm-hmm.
and some other.
So you like the brighter colors, like the
Yeah,
brighter,
I-
stronger, more
I-
saturated colors.
Yeah. I really like that.
Okay.
I prefer brighter color than grayish
Hmm.
yeah,
Desaturated colors.
this shaded color.
Okay. So, okay, if you were going to give young painters, beginning painters, amateur painters some tips or some advice, what advice would you give them?
Mm, Mix a lot of color
Okay.
and don't feel free when you paint.
Okay.
You must always paint like that you want, and a very important thing is to take inspiration in other part of art, not only in miniatures but also in a lot of different kind of art or even personal and autobiographic
Okay.
things.
Okay, excellent. All right, so that's enough for the interview. Thanks for that. We're going to go ahead with the tutorial. So Roman's going to show us how he painted that wonderful demon and show us all the techniques and the secrets behind it and how he achieved those wonderful skin tones on the demon flesh. So let's not waste any time and let's begin. Excellent. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so we'll begin this tutorial with the painting of the arm on this demon, starting with the flesh. We're going to do a lot of flesh work in this tutorial because that's what it's really about. And you're going to get to see some of Roman's really interesting techniques to how he completes things. So what Roman's gone ahead and done is he's actually base coated this arm. We got Cadishan green, 55%, graveyard earth, about 30%. Bleach bone about 5%, Talon flesh about 5%, scaly green about 5%, and we're using a dilution of about 1 part water to about 1 part paint. So it's a pretty strange mix, but Roman likes to use a lot of different colors because I guess it helps to really create a sort of nuance. Unlike our other tutorials where you're used to seeing the first shadows and the second shadow and third shadow and so on and so forth, a very linear progression, Roman doesn't normally paint like that. Now for the purposes of this tutorial, he'll try to do that as much as possible so it's easy to sort of follow him along, but traditionally he doesn't normally paint like that. Roman is very organic in his painting style and he jumps a lot from between shadow and base coat and highlight and back and forth to really get the proper result. But we'll try and incorporate some of that kind of technique that he uses in his normal painting, as well as making it easy for you guys to follow along. So what we'll do is we'll start with this arm, and Roman's already gone ahead and base coated it. So why don't we go ahead and we're going to start with, what are we going to start with here?
I will start with the first highlight.
Okay.
And I will add a little bit of bleached bone in my base.
Okay.
And I will begin to create the first highlight.
Okay.
So.
Okay, perfect. So Roman here is starting with his first highlight, which is a little bit different than we're used to. We're used to normally starting with the first shadow and building up at least 2 or 3 layers. Is there a reason you start with the highlight first?
There is not really a reason. It's I paint the first highlight because it's easier with this kind of miniatures to create a global light.
Roman is going to be starting with the highlight here first, just because of the fact that I guess the base is really dark itself, and just to get a really good idea of of what kind of lighting is going to be used, because of the fact that the lighting is the most important thing on this mini, because we're going to be using a sort of a global approach to lighting here, sort of imagining if the light was coming from overhead and trying to paint in all the shadows and highlights that way. He wants to get a really good idea of where the muscles are, of where the bulk of the muscles are. He's starting to already build up the volume, so that's a really good way to start. Sometimes you don't like we said, you don't always have to start with shadows. Like you see a lot of the other painters start with shadows, but oftentimes that's because they're using a very a light base coat. But you can see we've used a pretty dark base coat here, and you can see as well that Roman is painting a really very strange sort of way, the way his brush moves. it's not very smooth strokes. You can see he's kind of dabbing at the mini here. Is that the way you normally paint? Do you just dab at the mini like that? Do you just tap 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 the mini?
I always touch very quick the different part of the arm or
Okay.
of the
Of the
miniature
mini, right.
in general,
Okay.
and I think it's more natural for me to paint in that way.
Okay.
It's more realistic at the end.
Okay. Can you still get a smooth result though? Can you get still a
Yeah.
pretty smooth result
Yeah,
using that kind of technique?
this technique is perfect to have a very smooth result. You have to control the dilution,
Okay.
and after you must concentrate on little zone
Okay.
to smooth it,
Okay.
and at the end the result is good for anyway for me.
Good for you, of course. Well, that's the most important thing. Yes, you'll notice that Roman, unlike the other guys, they who use very broad, sort of smooth strokes. Roman doesn't really do that. You can tell he's just like tapping at it and just letting the paint sort of fall where it falls. And normally you would think that that would result in a very kind of rough or patchy kind of look, but it's not really turning out that way. I guess part of the reason is because he's chosen a very good highlight color. It blends very well. Again, we explained in our other tutorials, choosing the colors is so important, getting the right colors, because sometimes if you use too harsh of a color, then this kind of painting technique is not going to work for you. Okay, so that's the first highlight that Roman has applied. You can see that the result is very subtle, but it's still very effective. Good job. Okay, so this is going to be our first shadow, which is going to be a 50% mix of Catachan green and 50% scorched brown, using the same dilution. And of course we're going to apply this to the deepest areas. You can see that Roman is just sort of washing it all over the lower part of the arm, because that entire area is going to be a lot darker than the top part of the forearm anyways. Watch your frame. Good. And you can see that that scorched brown that Roman's added into the shadow is adding a really nice sort of richness to the color. It's not it is a darker color, but it's not adding a real blackness to all the shadows. It's adding a really nice sort of warmth to it, a really nice kind of a colored shadow. Again, you can see that he's keeping it just in the, it's sort of a guide layer more than anything else really, but you can see that Roman is trying to avoid where he put all the highlights, so it's really in just the darker parts of the area. Now this particular model is actually very forgiving in terms of blending, because of the surface of the model is so rough, and you can see that it's got a lot of little scratches and little
Skin textures.
skin textures, which is supposed to represent sort of a thick leathery type of skin. It's very forgiving when it comes to the blending. Yeah. And one of the things I want to mention is that Roman uses a blow dryer to dry his paints while he's painting, just because this model is a lot larger than normal minis, and be careful. Yeah. So you can see that Roman is really just concentrating on the deepest parts of the muscles. Now those muscles that were only moments ago so difficult to see are really starting to show up now. You can really see the volume in the muscle tone there really nicely. So there's the first shadow, and you can see that it's looking really nice. It's really helped to bring out those muscles. Really can see them a lot more now. Excellent job. So we're coming back with the base coat. Sort of an intermediate step. This is a step that a lot of the other painters do to sort of help blend the transitions from their highlights to their shadows. So we're basically coming back with the base coat just to help along. Perfect. Just to help the transition. Roman felt they were a little too harsh, and so he's kind of smoothing it out. And actually, Roman explained to me that this is a lot of what his technique is really just coming back and helping smooth out transitions. So after he does a couple shadows, he'll come back and smooth out the transition, then he'll go to the highlights, and then he'll come back to smooth out the transitions between that, and so on and so forth. And how many times he comes back is not necessarily, you know, a specific number. It's really a question of sensation. You know, how does it look? Does it look too harsh? Does it look good? It's really basically what it is. So you can see that Roman's sort of applying the colors. Really, he's not going into the deepest areas, and he's not going right into the highlights. It's just sort of a halfway between the two, just to help that blend that. And we're using exactly the same base coat color again, so there's no difference.
It's very difficult for me to
Yeah.
to paint in a different way that
Yeah, than you're used to.
because finally in a normal time I will never paint like that.
Mm-hmm.
I will finish one part, and in my head the plan of painting is very different, and I don't know where to stop, where to.
Yeah, so Roman was just mentioning as well that normally he doesn't paint like this. He doesn't paint an entire section like this. And I know a lot of people are probably thinking, what do you mean by entire section? He's just painting a small piece of the forearm. Well, actually, Roman sort of works on things a little bit differently than that. He sort of works muscle by muscle, or very small area by small area, and he'll finish that entire area before he moves on, which is actually very, very different than most painters are used to. We're not showing that particular style here just because of the fact that we want to actually get a whole tutorial and show you, you know, like a whole area. We don't have 10 hours to show you how to do a whole arm. That would take forever to do that. So just want to mention that that is how he does it. So it's a little bit different for him, but he's still going to get the same result. So you can see what else that base coat step has done. Not only has it helped smooth out the transitions, but it's also reintroduced a little bit of color back into the middle tones. Because the shadows were a little bit dark, but they were sort of taking away some of the that greenish quality of the muscle. So now we're just kind of reintroducing some of that in the mid-tones. So there we've gone ahead and finished up the coming back with the base coat just to help those transitions. Good job. So now we're going to come back again with the highlight, the exact same highlight color that we used. Just because we've sort of lost a little bit of the highlight definition with all the shadowing and the coming back with the base coats and stuff. So that's what we're trying to do here, just get back some of that volume. Again, Roman's just drying it there with the hair dryer to help it dry a little faster.
Hey, watch. Then there are two colors.
Mm-hmm.
bleached bone, the pure only bleached bone,
Okay.
and the transition color.
Right.
And I always playing with the both,
Okay.
but I don't mix them.
Okay.
The mix is created on my paintbrush
In your paintbrush.
because, for example, I take a little bit of this mix.
Yeah.
I put it here.
Yeah.
Take. I
You
dry.
it,
I
yeah.
dry it. I take a little point, and up, I mix. And the transition is created with the both
With both.
on the miniature in my paintbrush, and I dry. I repaint. That I touch another zone, etc. etc.
Okay. Okay.
So it's very difficult to have a strict. I can't.
And one thing that I wanted to mention that that Roman does, especially when it comes to doing his second highlights, is that he's got a little bit of pure bleached bone off to the side, and he's got that sitting right beside his first highlight color, which was the base coat with 30% bleached bone. And what Roman does is he taps the bleached bone, puts a little bit of the bleached bone down, and maybe we can just show that. So show how you do it. So you take a little bit of bleached bone. So go ahead. So now he's taken a little bit of bleach bone, yeah, and go ahead. And he'll put it right there at the top of that muscle. Just a little bit. And those two muscles and right there. And then what he'll do, after he's done that, is he'll take back that that second highlight color with the base with 30% bleached, and then he'll go and he'll put that sort of in the transition area. So not exactly where the highlight was put, but just below it. And that's one of the reasons it's very difficult to show Roman's style of painting, which is why we've had to change it up for the tutorial. Is because it's a very difficult type of painting to show. Roman goes back and forth with colors right in a certain zone, which is when we said that Roman paints certain specific areas, like he'll work on one or two little muscles, and then he'll go on to the next muscle. But this is a really good way to get a good idea of how overall the entire muscles are coming. So here we're just creating the volume of the vein. Just want to create some, and the vein is a really nice piece of, a nice feature of the Mini, so we really want to add a lot of emphasis to it and show that it is there, and it gives a lot of life to the Mini as well, so go ahead and pick out that little part. This is certainly going to be beneficial to make it look really, really cool. Again, even though that particular muscle right there is going to be a little bit on the inside of the arm, and it's going to be covered a little bit by shadow, we still want to add a little bit of emphasis there because it is a really cool looking vein, and it really does help sell the life of that entire arm. So the important thing to remember in this step is that as you see Roman painting, it's a little bit difficult to sort of to pick up exactly which colors he's using, just because of the fact that he goes back and forth between that pure bleached bone and that first highlight mix so quickly. He'll dab. You can see as soon as he puts the brush away, he comes back with the other color, and he puts it back, and he comes back with the other color, and so on and so forth. But really, what he's trying to do is blend and build up his highlights at the same time. You know, instead of building up a highlight and then coming back 10 minutes later to smooth it out, he's doing it almost little by little as he's going along. So he'll add a little bit of bleached bone right there, and then he'll come back with that base coat color, and then a little bit more bleached bone again, you see right there, and going right back on top of that. You know, and then coming a little bit more bleached bone there. And then
And even in the very dark part, you must create
a little bit of volume as well.
a little bit of volume.
Absolutely. So even in the darker areas, Roman is still going to use that bleached bone color to sort of come in there and add just a little bit of a hint of volume. Like, it's obviously very dilute and we're not putting that much paint there, but we still want to give volume everywhere. So unlike some of the other painters that say, you know, you don't have to add a highlight everywhere, Roman doesn't paint like that. Roman actually applies highlights everywhere. How far he takes those highlights is really the question. So you can see right there on the inside of the arm, even though he's adding highlights, he's not taking it very far. But that little bit, even though unnoticeable as it is, still adds a sort of feeling, a nuance of volume there. It's a lot more effective than just leaving it black in there, even though you can't see the effect nearly as much as you can on the other side of the forearm. Again, just going ahead and drying that up. Much very. So you can see that really it's unlike the if you watch some of our other tutorials, like the advanced tutorials on the black and white cloth, which is really just long, smooth strokes. Here, the entire tutorial, Roman's just been sort of picking at the model, just kind of letting his brush go completely wild over those areas, but he's not really using the smooth strokes to create his volume. It's really created through the color. So you can see we're adding a lot more emphasis there to those, to the inner part of those, to the wrists, because we really want those veins and bones in the wrist to really stand out. This is a really, really nice mini sculpted by Jacques-Alexandre Gillois, and he's added a lot of detail, and your job as a painter is really. It's really important to bring those little details out, because obviously the sculptor has spent a lot of time perfecting those little areas and really doing a really good job in bringing out those areas. So it does you a lot of credit to help emphasize those areas that the sculptor has spent time sculpting. So again, same technique throughout this entire section. Roman is really just going back and forth between that bleached bone that he's got sitting right beside his base mix. Okay, so that is our second highlight. Again, it was basically just a combination of using the first highlight color and a little bit of bleached bone off to the side that Roman just kind of went ahead and kept playing with back and forth between the two. Okay, so this is going to be our second shadow. It's going to be 30% Catachan, 60% Scorched Brown, and 5% Midnight Blue. Okay, so now what we're going to do is come back with our third shadow. And basically it's just the same color as the second shadow. And we're just adding about 5% more Midnight Blue to the entire mix. So basically it's exactly the same, we're just adding about 5% more Midnight Blue. And this time Roman is just going to keep it mostly in the deepest areas. Just because all of this coming back and forth, and you've seen the way Roman's brush sort of goes everywhere, it's taken away some of those shadows, so we're going to help bring back those shadows a little bit. But even though it looks like Roman's being very repetitive in terms of, covering something and then putting it back, covering something and putting it back, all the work is never lost. There's always, through transparency, you always see a little bit of what went on before, what was underneath. So by coming back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, really this is the secret of how to create really, really colorful and nuanced skin tones. It's just using subtle, subtle color after subtle, subtle color, not using the most harsh transitions between highlights and shadows and base coats, and just coming back and forth and back and forth, and eventually what happens is the paint sort of takes on its own quality, sort of a oily film-like quality, and it begins to have a play of colors within it, and that's sort of really what's happening here. And that, again, that's the inside muscle there, so we're going to add a lot of depth there. You can see that 5% midnight blue, extra midnight blue, is really helping to add a really rich, really, really nice rich color into that, into all those areas. Very nice. Okay, so there Rowan's gone ahead and finished up his third shadow, and you can see that that midnight blue, just adding a little bit more midnight blue, has added a really, really beautiful richness and really helped those muscles really come out. Good job. Now this is a very interesting step that Roman is going to do. What he's doing now essentially is he's going to use washes to create nuances and interest and color into the arm. Now what he's done is he's sort of set aside right beside his bleached bone 5 other colors, very dilute, about 4 parts water, 1 part paint for the dilution. We've got Graveyard Earth, Talon Fresh, Leech Purple, Scaly Green, coming with a little bit Graveyard Earth there. What he's going to do is he's going to go back and forth between the different colors, adding subtle layers of washes. And he's not going to do it in a very linear fashion, which is, starting with Graveyard and then going on to Leech Purple and then going on to something else and something else. What he's going to do is sort of using the sensation, the way things sort of feel to him. He's going to go back and forth with all the different colors. So you're going to see a lot of different colors, and hopefully they'll show up while you're watching them. Leech Purple. And that one was Leech Purple, and this one is going to be a little bit of Scaly Green. You can see that the Scaly Green is coming in there now, just very dilute. Again, 4 parts water, 1 part paint. Very, very dilute. A little more Scaly Green.
Why not? We can create a sort of strange effect in adding more Scaly Green near to the vein.
Yeah.
Why not?
Why not?
It's
Sure.
an idea.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A little bit more Scaly Green there. Now we're coming with some Scorched Brown now. A little bit of washes of Scorched Brown. Add a little bit of warmth. Scorched Brown has got a really nice warm reddish quality to it, so that'll help add a little bit of warmth back into the arm. And brown and green are colors that work really well together, so that's why Roman's using them here. And you can see what's happened immediately once Roman started using that brown is that warmth in that arm has started coming back. That life sort of underneath the skin of the creature has started coming back. Definitely try this color combination out if you ever get a chance. The greens and browns work so well together.
I will blend with Graveyard Earth.
Okay, so now we're coming with a little bit washes of Graveyard Earth there. And you can see what these washes are doing is that they're not really hurting the underlying work that we did that much. I mean, you can still see the highlights and shadows underneath, but they're really adding a really nice sort of nuance. Still with that graveyard earth. Yeah, a little bit of scaly green now again. So you can see the Roman is really just going over the same parts again and again. Even the areas that he went over with the graveyard earth and the other colors. It's really what we want is sort of a play of colors. We want all the colors to interact with each other. So now Roman is just coming back with the bleach bone, which is sitting right beside the washes there, just to pick out some of the details. And you can see he's just tapping, 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 tapping. Just to pick up some of those details like the veins, which we really want to draw interest to. Just certain areas. You can see how long we've spent and how many colors we've used on just this part of the arm, the forearm here. It's really necessary if you really want to get a master quality look to your minis. This is the kind of work that you're going to have to do. This is the kind of time you're going to have to spend. And a lot of it is experimentation, you know, just painting something, getting a feel for it, and coming back with something else.
I will concentrate my work on the skin textures.
Okay.
To
really bring out that leathery look. Okay. So Rowan is really just trying to help along that leathery quality of the skin. And he's just kind of picking up and highlighting the skin in a way that it looks like it's really really dry and crackled and like old leather. Okay, so now we're going to come back with our sort of final step on this arm. This is just adding a little bit of black wash. Again, about 4 or 5 parts water to 1 part paint. Just to help, because we're going to try to make that bracelet, that chain link, needs a little bit of emphasis, and we're going to try to add a little bit of lining to it. And the way we're going to do that is sort of help the, instead of adding just like a black line there, we're going to sort of make that entire wrist area a little bit darker, so it kind of leads into that link. So we're just going to add subtle washes of black in there. So just adding a little bit more black. You can see there. You can see how dilute the black is. It just kind of seeping into those dark areas, the recesses. This is going to help add a lot more emphasis to the chain link once we see that. To the handcuffs, I guess. Okay. So coming back with some more graveyard earth, the washes.
To create a sort of general filter.
Okay. Just to create again, the nuance, the filter. To add a little bit more color into the arm. Now with a little bit of scaly green as well. Adding a little bit more color, a little bit more washes. These washes really help give life to the skin, by the way, which is why Roman keeps using them. Just to give it, you know, doing highlights and shadows is one thing. I mean, that's, you know, once you've mastered the highlights and shadows, you need to start adding life to your minis, you know, really getting them to look alive within. And using washes is the way to really do that. So once you've mastered the steps of highlights and shadows and blending, then comes the real mastery of color, of which colors to use and which washes to use to give your miniatures life here. So just kind of going back and forth. Roman's just sort of going back and forth with those washes. Okay, and so there we've gone ahead and completed that section of the arm for you, the forearm and a little bit of the bicep. You could see how long we spent on it and what the result is, obviously. And a really, really excellent job. Those colors are looking really nice. All those washes that we add are adding a real nice nuance, a real life to that arm. Beautiful job. Excellent. This is going to be a slightly different approach again, as we did earlier. Roman has on his palette a little bit of skull white and a little bit of bleached bone sitting beside each other. He hasn't actually mixed them together. He's actually mixing them on the mini. So he'll put down a little bit of white. You can see he's put down a little bit of white there. And the dilution is again 50-50. And then what he'll do is he'll take a little bit of bleached bone and very quickly come back over it with bleached bone, and take a little bit more white and go in with the white there. You can see he's coming there with the white again. And then a little bit more white. You can see a lot more, it's a lot more noticeable there when he put it on the vein there, that he's got white on his brush. Just because of the color underneath is so much darker. But then there with the bleached bone, just helping smooth out those areas. Really adding some interesting texture there, just trying to create his own little bits of texture. Really give that illusion of leather, scratched leather skin. Just going to add a little bit more cuts and scratches there at the bottom and in the middle of the forearm. Still with the white. Still with the white. Now coming back with a little bit of bleached bone to help soften up those transitions. Wow, really nice. So that's a little bit more bleach bone, right? That was
Yes,
bleach
yes,
bone,
yes,
yeah.
yeah. It's bleach bone, yeah.
Yeah. So a little bit of bleach bone to help smooth out those little scratches of white that he made in there, because they were looking a little bit strong, but that bleach bone should help bring them back, help them blend back into the skin. Okay, so you can see that using a little bit of bleached bone and white sitting beside each other, Rowan has added a little bit of his own scratches and little marks into the skin, just to help sell the illusion of sort of a old, worn skin. Very good job. Okay, so now we're going to add a little bit more interest into the vein area, because Roman was felt like it could use a little help. So what we're doing is we're just going to use some washes of Leech Purple and Dark Flesh. And Roman is just going to go ahead and put some of that color in there just to help give it a little bit more life in those areas. Again, we're using the same dilution, about this is a wash, so it's got a lot more water in it than it does paint, so about 3 to 4 parts water to 1 part paint. But you can see just around the outer parts of the veins there, just on the outside ridges there. Roman doesn't want to cover up his the highlights and shadows that he put on the veins there, just in the depths, the deepest parts of the veins. You can see, so he kind of gets the feeling of that there's some kind of blood or something circulating through there. A little bit of Leech Purple now. You can see how well these colors work together, the purples and the browns and the greens, how well they work together. I mean, you really do have to use both of them to really get that natural feeling in that demon flesh.
Oh, it's cool.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so there we've completed the washes in the vein just to give it a little bit more life in there. You can see it has helped quite a bit. Good job. Okay, and that's the whole arm completed there for you. You can see that done a lot of work. It's taken a lot of time, but you can see the results look really, really good and really, really realistic. Excellent job. So this is the Scorch Brown 50% and Graveyard Earth 50%. That's for the base coat for the fur. So now we're just going to go ahead and paint the little patch of hair on the side of the arm there. And this is painted exactly the same way as all the other parts of the hair are on the demon, all along his back and all along his tail. So the first highlight is going to be the base plus 50% bleached bone. So you can see that Roman is just applying it just to the very individual strands, just mostly concentrating that pigment right along the top raised parts of the hair. Okay, so now it's just coming back with the base coat here a little bit, just to make the darker areas a little bit more darker, just the deepest parts of the hairs. So you can see that the hair here is kind of painted a little bit kind of like the forearm. Okay, so now we're just adding a little bit of black, Chaos Black, into the base coat mix. About 50-50? No, how much black do you think you added?
About 50-50.
50-50? Okay. So about 50-50 black, 50-50 base coat. Just into the deeper areas to really help those hairs stand out, to really separate the individual hairs there. So you can see that black is really helping to, into that base coat mix, is really helping to separate those hairs really well. It's really adding a nice bit of darkness, and it's helping to blend into the elbow area, that forearm area, a lot better as well. So you can really see that it's its own separate feature now. So now Roman is just coming back with pure bleached bone, just to get the very, very raised edges of the hairs. You can see that he's using very, very sharp tip on his brush there, and controlling a lot. A little bit. There we go. Just the raised tips to really, really bring out those individual hairs. Okay, so we're not using a lot of dilution here, just so that the paint sticks to the mini and it doesn't flow all over the place. Okay, and now we're going to come back with just pure skull white and just pick up those little pieces as well. Just at the very, very tops, at the very, very tips. Okay, and there you can see that we've gone ahead and finished off the hair there for you. Looks really, really nice, and it took very little time at all. Perfect, good job. So this is the first highlight again. This is just basically the base coat with about 30% bleached bone in it. Alright, so for the face, it's pretty much very much like the arm, the forearm that we did, the forearm and the bicep area. We're going to be using almost pretty much the same colors. The only reason that we're showing you the face is because, one, it's a very interesting area to show and very complicated, and the technique of painting is going to be very different because Roman's not going to be able to use all of his wild strokes because there's so many small details in the face, so it's going to be a lot more controlled painting. So it's really a benefit to see how he's going to control all that blending with such a small, how he's going to be able to blend such small areas together to produce really good transitions. So Roman is just going to go ahead and stick to painting the raised areas like we all know. You should all know by now. Just paint it, use it mostly as a guide. Paint any area that you think should receive light, raised edges, mostly the upper parts of the forehead and the cheekbones, the nose. So we're going to go back with the first highlight again. Actually, Roman wasn't very happy with the color that that first highlight was producing. So we're going to try a different approach, something that'll give us a lot brighter of a highlight, and you can see right away as soon as Roman started applying it, it's produced a much nicer effect. This is actually a mix of bleach bone, about 40%, Calvin Brown, about 30%, and our original base coat, which is about 30%. So this stuff, kind of stuff happens in painting. Sometimes you start with a highlight or a shadow, and you realize after a few strokes or whatever that it's not working out for you, and you just go ahead and fix it up. And that's exactly what Roman's decided to do here. So you can see that this particular highlight is actually a lot more appropriate. And the last one kind of looked a little gray. We were kind of talking about it off to the side, and it looked a little grayish. Looks a lot more appropriate, a little bit warmer, and obviously it does look like a highlight. Well, we're going to take it even further than that, you'll see, but it's a good starting point. And pay attention to the way that Roman's brush moves. You can see, unlike the other painters who sort of use long strokes, Roman just kind of taps at the model, just sort of tap, 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 and tap, 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 tap. It's a lot more controlled than it was when we were painting the arm, for sure, but it's still the same sort of tapping. The other painters sort of use a lot of dilution and like to drag the paint where they want it to rest. But Roman seems to use a little bit less dilution. Usually only use 50% paint, 50% water, so it's obviously a lot less dilution. And he likes to just tap at the model with the paint.
The other painter really paint with more of water?
Yeah, more water, 3-to-1.
Oh.
Yeah.
Alan,
3-to-1.
oh yeah.
Yeah, about 2 or 3-to-1. Yeah. Like Laurent always uses skim milk dilution, very, very dilute, 3 parts water, 1 part paint, almost always. As you can see, there's a lot of details on this particular mini, especially in terms of the face. There's a lot of things that you need to pay attention to, like the little wrinkles, the size of the eyes, and really got to bring out the emphasis in those areas. Sometimes when we're painting, we tend to forget. We tend to kind of gloss over little areas like that, or little areas that don't seem like they deserve a lot of attention, but absolutely go ahead and help bring those out, especially around the eyes, because the eyes receive a lot of emphasis, and a lot of people's immediately their eyes go there to the face of a mini, so it's important, especially in the face, to bring out every little detail.
It's really difficult to paint this head.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's our first highlight completed there with that second highlight color that we changed halfway through. And you can see the result, obviously, again, subtle but very effective. Good job. Okay, so now we're going to come with our first shadow. This is going to be 50% scorched brown, 50% Catachan green. And this time again, same as always, just in the deeper areas, darker areas. And that brown is going to really add a nice warmth to the shadows. You can see right away that brown is really coming through. That's why we always say, you know, try to use colored shadows instead of just black in your shadows. Always try to use colored shadows. They always add a lot of life into those darker areas instead of making it just seem distant and dark. They kind of add a nice, they kind of help those shadows jump out at you. You can see that he's just shadowing the under part of that ridge there on the eyebrow.
Face shadow maybe a little bit long.
Okay, keep going. So these techniques, they take a long time just because of the fact that this is a master class, and we're trying to achieve a master class kind of effect. Now, obviously, even when for the tutorial purposes, we're speeding it along a little bit, but normally this takes even a lot longer for Roman to do it. To paint it, because he spends a little bit more time, but for the purposes of the tutorial we try to hurry it up a little bit, but you're still going to get all the techniques and all the time spent in trying to recreate the exact look of the original. So although these steps are taking a long time, they are absolutely very, very necessary to do. You can see that Roman's spending a lot of time really focusing on the cheekbone there and the nostrils. Really want to get those to stand out, to really to recede into the background. And there, that's our first shadow completed. You can see it's really helped to bring out those cheekbones and the frown, the eyebrows. Really good job, excellent. So now we're going to come back and smooth out the transition from the first shadow to the first highlight and all that. We're going to be using a mix of 70% Calthan brown and 30% Cadishan green. Now this color is actually a little bit brighter than our first shadow, obviously, because we're using it to blend the transition a little bit better. But it's not really a second shadow or a first shadow or anything like that. It's really just an intermediate step to help smooth out the blending. As you can remember from the forum that in the hand that Roman does this a lot. There's a lot of this back and forth, applying a color, a shadow or highlight, and coming back and smoothing it out, smoothing it out. But now you can see it's a little bit more wild. He's going a little bit more wild. He's sort of going all over, even on top of the highlights, because on the first shadow he was avoiding the highlights, but now you can see that with this intermediate color, he's going right over the top of them. Okay, so there you can see that we've finished with that blending, and you can see that's helped to sort of bring back some of the, it's kind of hidden up the highlights a little bit, but of course we're going to come back afterwards and bring those back out again, but it's done a really good job of helping the whole face be a lot more unified. Good job. Okay, so now we're coming back with our third shadow. This is going to be a 60% scorched brown and 40% scaly green. And again, just into the deepest areas, like the mouth. And it's a very dilute. Understand. So, just going to put into the deepest areas. You can see that it's a very dilute mix. It's about 3 to 4 parts water, 1 part paint. And you can tell because it's kind of going everywhere. As soon as the paintbrush hits the mini, it kind of just seeps into the darker areas. You can see you don't even have to really try to blend it. Just kind of, you can't really blend it at all. It just kind of like goes wherever it wants to go. That's the danger sometimes of using a very dilute color to paint your minis. You don't really have a lot of control over where the paint goes. But it's okay. This is what Roman wanted to do. So this is exactly what the kind of effect he wants. You can see now that Roman's kind of going into the horns a little bit, just to darken up where the horns will blend into the skull. This face actually looks very similar to uh, a Chaos Prince.
Yep.
It's got the horns and the kind of demonic looks. It looks very similar, so you can always use this painting technique and apply it to your Chaos Princes. Okay, and so that's the third shadow, and really good job, excellent. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and add some black. This is going to be our fourth shadow, and we're just going to add pure black now, just to help and some pretty good dilution. It's about 2 parts water to 1 part paint, just to help separate the teeth from the jaw, from the gums. So you can see by using a good dilution that the paint is kind of seeping its way into the darker recesses by itself. And putting it a little bit inside the nostrils as well. Okay, so there's the black completed there for you. Good job. So this is going to be our third highlight, and what Roman is doing here is he has a little bit of bleached bone and a little bit of skull white sitting off to the side beside each other. And just like we did for the forearm and other parts of the miniature, he's just sort of going to go back and forth between those two colors, and he's not really going to mix them on the palette. He's just going to sort of mix them on the mini, actually. So that he's using right now a bleach bone, just to pick at the highlights. And the dilution for both of them is about 50-50, 50% water, 50% paint. So again, just concentrating on very, very small areas now. Especially some of those areas that were lost because of because of all the shadowing. We're really going to go ahead and really pick those back up again. So you can see here that how difficult the blending is to achieve. Just sort of tapping back and forth, but also crisscrossing. You can see he's making small little X marks, small little crisscrosses with the tip of his brush to really help that be smooth. Which is a different way of blending, as you can remember from other tutorials. The other guys, they use a lot of dilution. They put on a little bit of paint and then blow on it to make it dry, and then a little bit of paint, blow on it, make it dry to get that kind of trend smoothness. But Roman's doing it a little bit differently here. He's sort of just crisscrossing, and little bits of paint, little bits of paint. What's happening is the longer he keeps his brush there, the more opportunity he has for the paint to dry. So as the paint's drying, he also keeps putting on more paint from his brush, so it kind of helps to smooth out the areas at the same time while it's drying. So you can see that Roman is not highlighting very much into the darker part of that area, even though you can assume that they would have, like you could see where the jaw is, the upper part of the jaw, you could see that there would probably be highlights there, but Roman is deliberately avoiding them just because we want to create the emphasis mostly at the front of the face. And we want that jaw to sort of recede into the background to really give it a nice 3D look. So Roman's not going to highlight it very much. You can see there he's highlighting the wrinkles near the eyes. Now just highlighting the gums, the gum area around the teeth, because those would catch a little bit of light as well. But by doing that, it's also helping to separate the teeth even further from the gums and really help them to stand out and be their own feature. So now, like we said before, he has a little bit of white off to the side, and they're sitting right beside each other. And now he's going to go with the white. You can see immediately adding that little bit of white has really helped him bring that nose out. Just the first touch of the brush has really brought out the color there. And again, Roman is just adding little cuts or striations or texture, I guess, painted texture onto the skin. One good thing about it is it adds a lot of realism to the skin. It kind of gives it that demonic, stretched leather kind of skin look. But number two, it also helps the blending. So if there was any rough blending, and there wasn't really that I could see, but if there was, this kind of helps to hide it a little bit as well. Okay, and now with white, just going into the eyes to create a little bit of, to create the whites of the eyes. And you can see that Roman's using the very tip of the brush. Very sharp. Take his time. Okay, so that's the result after the highlights with the pure bleach blown and the subsequent pure white. Really good job, excellent. So these are the washes for the face. We got Midnight Blue there. We got Calfan Brown. And we got Scaly Green. Perfect. So we're starting with the, which color are we starting with there?
I have used a little bit of Calfan Brown.
Okay.
And now I am using
Scaly Green?
Scaly Green.
Okay, so now we're on to the Scaly Green. And just like the arm, this is what's going to add life into this face. And we've done a really good job with the highlights and the shadows and the black lining and stuff like that. Now we need to add life into this face. We need to bring a certain element of realism into it. And these washes are really what's going to do the trick. So.
Now I'm using the Midnight Blue because it creates a deep effect in the volume.
Okay.
So I will paint with a little bit of Midnight Blue in the deep of the eyes.
Okay.
this
Sure.
part.
Okay. So you can see that you used scaly green at the bottom of the eye. Now using a little bit of midnight blue at the top of the eye, which is a little bit darker. You can see though how wonderful that's really making that entire area look. It's really helping it to stand out now.
We turn with a little bit of scaly
A little bit more scaly green.
around the eyes.
Okay.
Midnight in the tip of this part.
Okay. And so they just right under the cheekbones. Getting under the camera. Yeah, perfect. So some midnight blue right under the cheekbone there. This is a really interesting approach because I think our other painters usually just use one or two washes. Usually, maybe even just one particular color for wash. Roman's using about 4 colors here, and the way he's picking them is kind of interesting. I mean, he'll pick colors that he knows works well, and then he'll just go and grab something else that he thinks, something he'd like to try, and not even anything that particularly is guaranteed to work well, and it ends up working really well, which is funny.
A little bit of Kathenbrum.
But I think it's because of the use of all these different kinds of washes, especially washes that work well together or sort of have similar colors running through them, are really going to create really, really realistic effects for you, really, really help you bring your mini to the next level. And the dilution of these washes is about 3-4 parts water to 1 part paint. So very dilute.
It's okay.
Okay, look at that. Look at what the washes have done. Really excellent job. Great. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and start on the teeth. And we've already gone ahead and base coated them for you with Commando Khaki. Now we're just coming with some Skull White to highlight them for the first highlight pass. And you can tell because of all the work we did earlier when we were working on the face with the lining around the jaw, that those teeth are already really easy to paint because they're standing out so well already. So finding the where to highlight them is actually pretty easy now. So now we're just using a little bit of Calthin Brown and just a little bit, nice and dilute, putting it at the bottom of the teeth just to help give them a little bit more color. So you can see that the way that these teeth are being colored, it looks like very rotted teeth, old, almost like claws. So now Roman is using a mix of midnight blue and scorched brown, and a little bit of black in there as well. It's about equal, all three of them, and just to help separate the teeth from the gums. And people are probably always wondering why are we using so many different colors? Why are you using such strange colors? Just because of the fact that, as you've seen before throughout the rest of the tutorial, it's all these mixes of colors that work well together, that create those nuances and create those interesting effects. So better to mix colors than just to use it straight out of the bottle sometimes. We can create a very interesting effect. It adds a lot of unity, that's for sure. Okay, and that's it for the teeth. You can see they're looking really nice now. Good job. So now we're just going to go ahead and finish off one of the eyeballs for you guys, so you can see what it looks like. And Roman is just taking a little bit of scaly green on his brush there and just creating a little iris with the scaly green. Just very little bit. There you go. And this is pure scaly green, about 50-50 dilution.
Yes, exactly.
So we're adding now about 50% white into that scaly green to make the center just a little bit brighter.
Now we'll do the black point in the
Okay, in the
eye,
center. Okay.
the center
pupil.
of the pupil. Yeah. Yeah.
There you go.
there.
Perfect. Don't want to make it too big; it'll look a little unrealistic.
I use white
Okay.
mixed with a little bit of scaly.
Now we're just adding a little bit of reflection in the eyes, a little light point. Just going to go right at the top there, above the pupil. Just a little bit of a dot of white. And there you go. Beautiful. Look at that. Just adding that little bit of light point just really helped the eye come alive. Okay, so you can see from our extreme close-up there that what the eyeball looks like, and it looks really good. You can see it's an excellent job. Beautiful. Really nice. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and do the first highlight on the horns. It's going to be a 50% mix of Calthan Brown and 50% bleached bone. And dilution's about 50% water, 50% paint. So So you can see that Roman is just kind of following the contours, the modeling. He's just kind of giving it those little ridges in the horn, just little taps. Again, that color underneath it is very strong. That pure Calthon brown is very strong. So Roman has to apply a few different coats here to get that highlight to really show up. Skull white?
Yeah.
Just little bits of skull white there. Just to pick at the little individual ridges as if they were catching the light. And then right along the edge of the horn there as well. Okay, so you can see that there wasn't really much to the highlight process there, just a little bit along the ridges and just to pick up some of those little striations, those little cuts into the horn, and that was pretty much it. Good job. You can see on the other side we actually did the horn on the other side. Problem was it stopped recording halfway through. We didn't realize it, and then we ended up completing the horn without, well, sort of completing the horn without recording any of it. So we're going to start again on this side. We're just going to highlight the raised edges of the horn and get those nice little striations in there. And okay, so that was it for the highlights there. So it's very little, just a little bit around the raised edges. Now Roman's coming in with a chestnut ink wash. Just going to go ahead and put that all over the horn there, just to get a nice warm sort of feeling, and also help bring out some of those ridges and edges, because again the ink wash is very dilute and it is going to seep into the ridges and the deeper parts of the horn. And we mentioned in other tutorials that inks are notorious for looking very glossy once they're finished drying, which is why a lot of painters don't like them. But in this particular instance, this is what Roman wants. He wants that sort of glossy look, that shine afterwards, that organic feel to it. So this is why he's using the inks on this particular part.
And we can mention that Benoit Ménard, the master Benoit Ménard,
Yeah,
on every miniature he uses a lot of ink.
a lot of ink.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can use inks very successfully. Just be aware that they do dry with a very kind of glossy look. But you can see exactly how much just that little bit of ink wash is really helping to really add interest to the horn. Now we're just using a little bit of skull white on the very raised part of just the very edge of that horn there. Just a little bit of skull white, just to help that ridge stand out a lot more. Now we're coming back with some black ink wash. And just like you could see on the other side, we're going to really darken up the tips of the horn. And you can see that Roman's just using his hairdryer again to sort of gradually build it up. He doesn't want to deposit too much ink on there. First of all, it'll run all over the place and it just won't look right. So by putting it on gradually and then drying it and gradually and drying it, you can control a lot more where that ink is flowing. Now I'm just putting a little bit more black right into to help separate the different faces of that horn. Watch your fingers.
finished it, I think.
Okay, perfect. So let's get a straight on shot of the head. Okay, and there you can see we've finished up the horns, and you can see how much more interest it's added to the face and how wonderful they look. Excellent job. Alright, so we've gone ahead and finished up the hand as well on this piece, exactly like the way we did the forearm, the upper part of the forearm and the bicep, using the same colors, nothing different. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead with the claws first. They've been based in 50% scorched brown, 50% commando khaki, and we're going to go ahead and paint those right now. Okay, so now Roman is just using some pure bleached bone to create those little lines, the little discolorations that you normally see in claws. You can just see he's just drawing straight lines right down there with a nice dilution of bleached bone, about 50% paint, 50% water. So again, Roman's going to use the same technique that he used with the washes earlier for the hand. He's got 3 washes sitting beside each other. We got yellow ink, black ink, and chestnut ink. So you can see that that was the chestnut ink, is that right?
Yeah.
And again, they're just sitting off to the side, and Roman's just sort of going back and forth between all of them to give a nice sort of color to it. Again, this is the kind of thing that you're going to have to do, especially when you want a lot of different interesting colors to kind of come into play again. Using different colors of inks and different dilutions to really kind of create a nice, interesting effect. You can see that chestnut ink is adding a really nice color, a really nice richness to those nails. And it's also, especially because it's ink and it's going into the deeper parts of the nails, it's really helping to separate the nail from the fingers. You can see also that chestnut ink is really helping to bring back those lines that we put in.
I will underline.
Yeah, going back with the lining. Okay, so now Roman is going back with the lining because the chestnut ink has gotten rid of some of that lining that he created earlier. He's just going to build it back. And it's going to be a lot of back and forth of this, putting the lining down, putting some more washes, putting the lining down, putting some more washes. You'll see as he goes along.
And I will with Rush and with the chestnut.
Okay, so again with the chestnut ink again. Yeah. Good. Again with the chestnut ink. Just leave it like that for a second. Okay, so coming back again with the chestnut ink. Again.
Little of black ink.
Now we're okay, a little bit black ink, okay. Yeah, it's really helping to separate those fingernails from the fingers, you can see. Wow, good job. Now yellow ink?
Yeah, I will test.
Okay.
Not sure of the effect.
Okay, so now we're adding just a little tiny bit of yellow ink, and Roman's just testing it out to see if it's going to work for him. You can see it's added a nice little bit of warmth and color to the bottom of the nail. So it looks like it's doing a pretty good job. We might stick with that. I'm going to close that door. Back with the bleached bone again to create those lines again. So you can see, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of this is back and forth because of the fact that exactly like the forearm, how when Roman was painting the forearm, we kept going back and forth. There we go. Just exactly like how we were creating the forearm, it was a lot of back and forth, a lot of putting down a color and then a highlight or a shadow, and then washing over it, and then going back with the same color to bring it back again because it disappears with the washes. And this is exactly what Roman keeps doing, just putting those little lines down with the bleached bone, then washing over it, then putting the lines down with the bleached bone again, and then washing over it. Watch your focus.
Oh.
Okay, so there's the claws completed there for you. Excellent job. And we're going to be doing some other stuff like putting blood on top of them, but we'll come back to that. Excellent job. Good work. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and start on the metal handcuff for the demon on his arm there. We've already gone ahead and base coated it for you with a mix of 60%, yeah, bolt gun metal 60%, camouflage, German camouflage 20%, and graveyard earth 20%. So this is the first shadow. And you can see it's a very dilute wash, just kind of putting it everywhere. Watch your frame there. Yeah.
And for the chain,
See, Roman is just trying to using a good dilution there because that's what's allowing it to go into the deeper areas, just sort of fall into the deepest areas around the links of the chain. Really want to get it to look like those are individual links there.
I will make some light with mithril silver,
Okay, some highlights.
some highlight here.
Okay, so we've gone ahead and finished up the first shadow there for you on the chain, and good job. So this is the colors for our first highlight. We're just going to use 70% mithril silver and about 30% of our original base. Mithril silver is a very, very shiny color, so using the base coat in its mix is really going to help keep that highlight from going way, way too high. And you can see that Roman is going to... Really, a lot of people use mithril silver as their highlight. But it's kind of like the white. It's kind of like Chaos White. You got to be very careful with it. It can easily go very, very high.
I will just underline the angle,
Okay.
this part,
Okay.
to make it bright.
Brighter, right. So the chain links provide interesting curves and surfaces for our highlights there, so we can highlight the tips of the spikes, the edges of the spikes, the sort of round arcs of the chain links just a little bit, just to really give it that kind of cold feeling of thick steel. And so there you can see that we finished up the first highlight for you, just little bits of mithril silver in with the base. You can see that it's done a really, really good job of helping to bring out some of that metallic feeling in the handcuff. Good job. So now we're coming back with the black wash again. Just because that mithril silver is, like we said before already, it goes very high, and can sometimes ruin it if it's way too bright. So Roman's just kind of coming back with the black to kind of help
The transition.
exactly help the transition and ease up the highlights as well.
And here I use pure black, chaos black, to create the impact in the metal.
The little dents and scratches, right? So you can see that the handcuff there slightly has little bits of dents and scratches in it modeled into it. So Roman is just going to go ahead and exaggerate those a little bit by allowing the black to go into there, just using a slightly less diluted paint.
So it's okay.
Okay, good stuff. Alright, so there it's done with the black wash. Good job. So this is another interesting color that Roman's going to use for the rust on the chain, on the chain and the handcuff. It's actually called. You can find this in a lot of art stores. It's basically it's dry pigment, and artists use it to mix up their own colors. This particular one is called Burnt Earth, and you can see that Roman's just adding a little bit of water into the pigment and then putting it right onto the chain link. And it's going to add a really interesting effect, as you can see.
I must dry it.
Yeah. Okay, and now Roman is just switching up the colors. We're still using the same kind of dry pigment. Now he's using a color called Shadow Burnt Earth, and it's just actually kind of looks like scorched brown, actually. But why do you prefer these pigments? What do you like about them, other than why didn't you just use color?
These pigments we can dry them,
Yeah.
and after if you brush these pigments with your paintbrush,
Paintbrush.
with your wet paintbrush, you can move the pigments even if it's dry.
Oh, okay. Okay. I see what you're saying. So what Rowan is saying is that even after the pigment dries, because it's still sort of sitting right there on the metal on the Mini, you can still just use a wet brush or another color to kind of push it around a little bit more. You can keep pushing it and pushing it, so it's a lot more easier to manipulate. And I think it adds its own effect. You could see that it's creating a very dusty kind of rust that's kind of hard to achieve with the other colors. You can see it's looking really nice. It's kind of giving that really dusty appearance to the whole metal. Very nice. And metal, besides, rust is very matte anyways. Rust doesn't, in real life, doesn't shine or anything like that. It appears very dusty. And this is sort of the same effect here. So there's the handcuff after Roman's applied the two different types of pigments to it. And you can see it's done a very good job of really creating a very dusty, matte rust effect. Good job. So now Roman's going to use a very interesting color. This is steel from Prince August, or Vallejo, as Prince August is called in the States. This color is actually for airbrushing. Actually, it's not really meant for painting. So the reason that Roman is using it is because of the fact that the airbrushing paints generally have a lot more pigment in them, a lot more metallic particles, and they're really a lot stronger, and they're really a lot more punchy. So to really get just a couple highlights that are extremely punchy, a lot more than the Mithril Silver, we're going to use this particular color. So you can see that we're only applying it to very certain areas just because of the fact that it is such a strong highlight. So it's just going to really highlight those edges of the spikes.
It's finished it.
Perfect. So you can see, let's show it. Okay, so you can see that that took very little time at all. Just a couple little nicks here and there, just to really help bring out some of those punchy areas. Good job. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and just add some blood to the claws and to some parts of the hand there. We're using a really special color here from Tamiya Color.
Tamiya Smoke.
Tamiya Smoke. and it's sort of a dark grayish red color. Looks like blood, actually. So this effect is actually very, very simple to accomplish, but you have to have the right color. So having the right color here is of the utmost importance. Now these colors are very glossy. They dry very glossy, which is perfect for the effect of blood, because it's gonna still be shiny even after it's dried.
We'll add a little bit of black ink.
Okay.
And it reacts with the Tamiya smoke.
Okay.
And it creates a sort of effect, a strange effect. Very, very realistic.
Okay.
For the blood.
Okay, so this is just Games Workshop black ink that we're adding now on top of the Tamiya ink.
Yep.
And
both mixed create a very realistic effect.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, it does look a lot more realistic now. This is these are two colors you absolutely have to pick up, especially if you ever want to do blood on anything, on a sword or shield. So that's it. And that's it for all the tutorials as well. I want to thank you guys for joining us. I want to thank Roman for sitting with us and teaching us all of his really great techniques here. And I hope you guys stay tuned for even more coming from your miniature training resource, Miniature Mentor. Thanks for watching, guys.